Happy Tuesday, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful day and that you're having a wonderful January so far, 3 weeks in. So I hope you guys are doing well and that you're embracing this new year as much as possible. Today, we're going to be diving into a topic that is so very essential, especially in the midst of January chaos. This is self-assessment filing. 31st of January deadline is fast approaching. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, do not worry. We have got you. Filing your tax return can feel very daunting, especially if it's your first time, but that's why we're here. In today's episode, we're going to break it down so you feel confident, informed, and ready to hit submit. We'll cover who exactly needs to file a self-assessment return, what documents you need to prepare / get ready for your advisor and your accountant, a little step-by-step guide to filing online, some common mistakes that you should avoid, and what to do if you miss the deadline. Hopefully you're watching this and listening to this in time, so you will not miss the deadline, but just in case you do, we've got you covered. So grab a cup of tea or your calculator and let's get started. So firstly, not everyone needs to file a self-assessment tax return. I'd love for us to just clarify this for a moment. You need to file a self-assessment tax return if you are self-employed and earn more than £1,000 during the tax year. If you have rental income of over £2,500 after deducting expenses, or if you earn over £100,000, and this is even included in your employment. Also, if you receive income that isn't taxed at source, such as dividends or foreign income, then you will also need to file a self-assessment tax return. If you or your partner claim childcare benefits and one of you earns over $50,000, you may need to pay the high income child benefit charge. And if you're a director of a company, then you might need to file unless all of your income is taxed already through PAYE. If you're not so sure, use HMRC's eligibility online tools or pop us a message and we'll be happy to have a look at this for you, because it's honestly better to speak to someone and confirm than to risk penalties later on. Before you start filing, you need to ensure that you gather all the necessary documents. This will help save you time and to reduce the mistakes that can possibly be made. So the first thing that you'll need is your income records. This will be your P60 or your P45 if you are employed, some invoices and income statements if you're self-employed, rental income details if you're a landlord, and dividend vouchers if you own shares. For expenses, you'll need receipts for business expenses like marketing, travel, fuel, motor expenses, etc. Utility bills if you're claiming a portion of your home as workspace, and some other financial documents that you may need are things like pension contributions, student loan statements, and any details of capital gains such as selling properties or shares. I think one of the best things that you could do is to organize these documents into folders, whether it's physically or digitally. By doing this, it makes it so much easier to find. So when you hand it over to your accountant, when you hand it over to your advisor, it's just a matter of sending them the document or handing them the folder and they can deal with the rest from there. I understand that we're fast approaching the deadline, so you may not have time to do this now, but I think it's something that's very noteworthy for after the 31st of January for you to be able to start doing this, so that when the time does come around again next year, you don't feel so overwhelmed and so unprepared for the situation, because I know that it can be a very stressful time. So how exactly do you file your tax return? While working in the field myself, I would always recommend getting an advisor where possible. If you'd like to tackle it yourself, give it a little try, or perhaps you just like to seek some guidance but not actually have an advisor file it for you, then this is how you can go about it. You firstly log into your HMRC account. This can be done by visiting the HMRC website and signing in with your government gateway ID. If you do not have one, register immediately. It can take a couple of days for you to receive your activation code, so it's important that this is done well in advance of the deadline. The next thing is to then complete the main section. This is things like your personal details, your employment status, and then any details of your income, even if tax has already been deducted. You will then make a list of your allowable expenses. So this might be travel, marketing, office costs, or if you're using the work from home strategy, then you could perhaps do that and deduct a portion of your working from home expenses. Once you've popped all of this information in, HMRC will calculate your tax bill. HMRC will automatically let you know how much you owe based on the information provided. So ensure that you double check everything, review all the figures before submitting to avoid any errors. Once you've submitted and you're satisfied that the return is complete and correct, you can send this over to HMRC and you'll receive an online confirmation and an email to let you know that this has all gone through. You'll then also have to make sure that you pay your tax bill by the 31st of January 2025 to avoid any interest charges. If your tax bill exceeds £1,000, HMRC may ask you to make advance payments on account for the next year, which will be due on the 31st of July 2025. So just make sure you keep an eye out for that. Some common mistakes that I would really recommend that you guys try to avoid where possible, because these really can lead to penalties and they can lead to potentially extra charges if you're not careful. One thing is forgetting to register. If this is your first time filing, you do need to register for self-assessment. This is not just something that is automatically done for you, and it can take a little bit of time. So please do not leave it until the last minute. Make sure that you also double check every information that you've put in there, down to your national insurance number, your income figure, and the expenses that you're claiming. Make sure that you do not claim any ineligible expenses. HMRC does have very strict rules on what is a allowable business expense and what is a disallowable business expense. So make sure that you seek advice to get this clarity, because an advisor will be able to help you. They will probably be a lot quicker at doing so. If you'd like to tackle it yourself, I will pop a little link down to give you some materials that you can have a little read of, but please make sure you double check. If you're not so sure, do not put it on the form. Do not claim it as an allowable expense. If in doubt, seek advice and just leave it as is. Another mistake that people often make is by missing the deadline. It is the 31st of January. It is unfortunately not the 1st of February, and it is not the 2nd of February either. You have to submit it before the 31st of January 2025. So make sure that you don't do this, because if you are late, you will immediately incur a £100 filing penalty, and additional penalties will be levied if the delay continues. Another thing that I think a lot of people commonly miss is not saving a copy of your return. I am so meticulous in saving a copy of this return. Different people are very different, and I know different companies are very different, but the companies where I've worked previously have always saved something on the record for at least 5 years. So that way, if HMRC do come back and they perhaps have any questions, they have any queries about the expenses that have been claimed or why this information has been inputted, you have that record there. So make sure you keep a copy of the return and of any supporting documents that you have for at least 5 years. One thing that you really can do is just to use a tax software like Xero or QuickBooks. This can help to minimize the errors and honestly helps to speed up the process a little bit as well if you're looking to do it yourself. So say you're watching this after the 31st of January, you're thinking, dear Lord, I should have submitted a return. What am I going to do now? It happens, deadlines are missed. It's okay. It is not the end of the world. The first thing that I would recommend that you do is to file your return as soon as possible. Unfortunately, at this point, you will have the £100 penalty that has applied immediately. But by filing as soon as possible, you can help to avoid any additional fines that will be levied against you over time. If, for example, you do have a valid excuse, perhaps you were sick, or maybe you were going through a bereavement, or maybe, you've recently lost a loved one, you can contact HMRC to appeal the penalty that's been levied against you. I'm not saying that this will automatically be removed. I'm definitely not saying that, but HMRC, again, are very reasonable and can be very lenient where necessary. So contact them, explain your situation to them, and they may be able to remove this penalty on your account. The next thing that I would suggest is that if you can't pay your tax bill, set up a payment plan. HMRC, again, can be very reasonable and very lenient. They offer a lot of time to pay arrangements as long as you contact them and you let them know what's going on. You explain your situation to them and they are more than happy to help you. So make sure you contact them because, again, this will help to reduce the amount of interest that's going to be charged on you and will also help to stop any penalties that may be levied against you for this. Now, I know that this has probably been a lot to take in and a little bit overwhelming, but I really do hope that this step-by-step guide of self-assessment has made the process feel slightly less intimidating. If you're feeling stuck or have any queries, please reach out to us. We're more than happy to help and want to be able to assist you in making sure that this is done, dusted and filed by the 31st of January so you can enjoy the year knowing that you won't have to worry about it again until next year. So make sure you guys subscribe, leave us a review, and follow us on Instagram for more tips and reminders. As we get towards the deadline, we'll be posting little tips and tricks as to how you can tackle this upcoming deadline even more. So make sure you're tuned in, make sure that you're following us, and make sure you share it around to any people that you might know who may be in need of filing a self-assessment tax return but don't quite know yet. Let's help them together. Here's to filing on time and with confidence. You've got this. Until next week. Bye.